Hello everyone, and welcome back to Stories with me, Jesse, and today we're once again looking at the people who ask us to decide if their actions were justified over at Reddit/Am I the A-hole. Let me know what you think of these stories in the comments, as well as any suggestions you might have that we may just use in a future installment. Prepare yourselves to reach an unbiased verdict, because we're getting started now. Our first story is titled, Am I the a-hole for asking my date for their ID to confirm their age? I, 22 female, went on a coffee date with this guy from Tinder after talking for about a week. On the app it said he was also 21. When I got to the coffee place, he looked kind of like his pictures, but a little younger, making me question his age. So, I decided to ask him if he wanted to get a drink later. He started acting kinda weird and looked nervous before suggesting dinner instead. This was odd to me because he had previously said that he enjoyed drinking. During the date, he also said he worked somewhere else than he had told me via text, making the whole interaction seem off. At the end of the date, I asked him to drive me home, and when we were in front of my apartment, I brought up the inconsistencies between what he texted me versus what he said and asked to see his ID. He started crying and apologizing and showed me his ID. He was 18. I felt really bad for making him cry, especially because I didn't plan on going on a second date. I told my friend about it, and she said I should have let it go, and there was no need to embarrass the guy. So am I the a-hole? No way are you the a-hole for knowing that something was off and calling your date out on it. Of all the things for him to lie about, I think he needed this reality check, so he's not as likely to try this with other women. Moving on, our next story is called, Am I the a-hole for taking back the beer I bought for a party from which I was uninvited? This happened just a few hours ago. I am a 19-year-old man, and the people calling me an a-hole are 18-year-old men and women. On Tuesday, a person I had a major crush on in high school, but who rejected me, messaged me out of the blue. She had never contacted me without my contacting her first, and at one point, I realized she had blocked me on social media, so I found it odd that she was suddenly being friendly. After sending a couple of greetings/questions about how I've been, she said she was going to have some people over and wanted to know if I would get the beer. The drinking age where we are is 19, and she and the people who were going to chill were all 18. The liquor stores in my area all card. I thought it was silly that my being a month older meant I could buy liquor and they couldn't, so I said I would love to go. She said, thanks, I'll pick you up at 7. 7 o'clock rolled around and she texted me to say she was in front of my house. I went out dressed and ready to chill with some people, and she drove me to the liquor store. When we got there, I asked what beer she wanted me to get, and she told me to get Budweiser. I hid my disappointment as well as I could, but it was her party, so I went in and bought 2 cases of 24. I got back in the car and said, let's party, and she was eerily quiet. I noticed that she wasn't driving towards her neighborhood, but rather back towards mine. I thought she had moved or something, but didn't want to press the issue. When she turned down my street, I finally figured it out. She was being purposefully vague about the invitation because she wanted me to get the beer, but she wanted a way out when she told me I wasn't actually invited in the first place. She stopped in front of my house, leaned over, kissed me on the cheek, and said, thanks, in her best voice. I deadpanned her and asked when she was going to tell me I wasn't invited. She feigned surprise and said that she never intended to invite me in the first place. I sat in silence for a long, awkward minute, picked up the beer, and walked towards my front door. She got out of her car and frantically tried to re-invite me to the party, but I told her that what she did was the most humiliating thing that's ever happened to me. I opened my front door, slammed it a bit too hard, and came back to my room. Now I'm sitting here drinking absolutely unpalatable piss water, and I have text messages from all of her friends and her asking me why I'm being such a dick. I don't think I'm the a-hole for reacting the way I did. But if you haven't figured it out, I'm not amazing socially, so I'm not sure. Am I here? You are very clearly not the a-hole. This girl had to know that you've always liked her and tried to manipulate and take advantage of you. I've had shockingly similar scenarios like this in my younger years, but I stupidly allowed myself to fall victim to being used more than once. Not sure what you're gonna do with all those beers now though. Maybe send her a picture of you pouring one out into the toilet. Our next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for kicking my roommate out for something that her friend did? I am a 37-year-old man, and my roommate is an early 30s woman. I rent a 2-bedroom house, and it had a spare room, so I decided to look for a roommate last year. I had a couple of people interested, but a friend asked me for a favor, and I let her move in. She pays about 30% of the rent because that's all she can afford. My roommate has one particularly good friend who she invites over regularly. I do not like that woman at all. She is loud, self-centered, and has no concept of boundaries, property, or privacy. She has accidentally eaten my food and drunk my beer several times when she came over, and I have voiced my opinion about her to my roommate regularly. My roommate's response has always been, as long as I'm paying my part for the rent, the company I keep is between them and me. On Saturday night, she invited her friend over. As I am often in my room, I was completely naked, lying over my covers, reading a book. I like being naked and expect a reasonable amount of privacy from civilized people. When my roommate was in the bathroom, my door flew open like it was rammed by a siege engine. Her friend had barged in to surprise me, and instead of frantically apologizing for violating my privacy and seeing me naked, she burst out laughing as I fumbled to cover myself. By now, my roommate had come out of the bathroom, and her friend shouted to her, "I saw his little dick!" My roommate snort laughed loudly. The next morning, my roommate was hungover, and so I told her that her time in the house was over and she had a month to vacate. I looked up the laws in my state, and since I am the only person on the lease, I can legally kick her out as long as I give her proper notice. She told me that she warned her roommate about privacy after what happened, and I told her I don't care at all. She brought that woman into the house, she was entertained by my embarrassment, and I wasn't comfortable living with her for another day. I told her if it were legal, I'd kick her out that second. My roommate has been nasty with me all week, saying that she has nowhere to go. I don't care, and kept telling her that she might want to start looking. Our mutual friend, who I originally did the favor for, has sided with her completely, and so I just blocked him. Am I going too far here, or am I not the a-hole in this case? Wow. I don't think you're an a-hole, considering how you were doing your friend a favor, and she obviously didn't respect your feelings, let alone your privacy. Her entitled friend inadvertently consuming things you've paid for is one thing, but to storm into your bedroom without even knocking and proceeding to make fun of your naked body is another matter entirely. And your roommate didn't even do anything about it, just laughed. And that ain't right, so she can just hit the road. Our next story is called, Am I the a-hole for calling all men Kevin? I'm the only woman in my workplace of about 50 people. Mostly this is okay, except for the sales team. They're mostly younger men who will turn anything into one of two things, a dick measuring contest or a very obnoxious joke. They have jumped on the Karen meme with both feet, both hands, and a duck. The only issue is that they don't just use the name Karen to talk about someone who is behaving in that snobbish, I want to speak to your manager way. They use it for all women. Woman standing in line? Karen. Hairdresser full of women? Crowd of Karens. Older woman getting on the bus? Old Karen. Couple of female kids. Looked about 8 or 9 in their brownie uniform doing litter picking with a group. Little Karens. Resultantly, all women equal Karen, and Karen equals deserving of ridicule and mockery. And thus we have ended up at all women equal deserving of ridicule and mockery. And I ignored it at first, figuring that it wouldn't last and they'd move on to something new, as they normally do. But it's been months, and they're still doing it. An attempt at a lighthearted convo I tried with one of them, pointing out that maybe it was problematic, got me, unsurprisingly, called a Karen. So, I started calling all men Kevin whenever I am in earshot of one of them, including them, and when I'm referring to them, I really go all out, like make it a really loud nasal whine and draw the word out, especially if they're pissed off about losing a sale. Aw, is Kevin having a bad day? This, apparently, is a lot funnier than their Karen line, so other people have picked it up and run with it. Now sales are pissed and telling me I'm an a-hole. I don't think I am, and I'm planning on letting it run for maybe a week or so after they drop the Karen thing. Then I'll drop it. Am I the a-hole? You are not the a-hole for serving your rude and simple-minded coworkers with the same kind of nickname that they apparently give to all women out there instead of just the actual Karens. These are the kind of shallow-minded people that have caused an outcry that is turning Karen into a sexist term, and that's not how it should be at all. While some may argue that everyone sucks in this story, it was you against a bunch of others. So I think you get an ass pass, but that's just me. Our final story is called, Am I the a-hole because I took all the leftovers home after a work party? I've worked at this company for 3 years. My 3-year anniversary landed me on the same day of my significant other proposing, and to top it all off, I'm getting promoted. I was expecting at least something from my coworkers, like a small party, gift, nothing fancy. I was pretty hurt when I came in that week to find nothing. There were congrats and well dones, but nothing else. I poured my eyes out later to my significant other and expressed how uncared about I felt. He contacted one of my coworkers, soon-to-be employee, and she went to my manager and set something up. They had a little buffet in the break room, just the common stuff. Veggie platter, dips, chips, and sweets like cookies, tarts, and brownies, and some banners. At the end of the day, I took the leftovers home with me on the plate/Tupperware they came in on. The coworker, again soon to be my employee, texted me the next day, asking if I took the sweets she made along with the plates. I said yeah, and she got super hostile. Apparently, she wanted to keep those in the break room for those unable to attend the party, so they could still eat, and nowhere did she say this was all for me. She also needed the platter back because she was making a birthday cake for her niece. My significant other and I both agreed it was wrong for her to text me like that, and seeing as it was my party, if I wanted the leftovers, I deserved them. But he thinks I should just apologize to keep the peace. If I'm not wrong, I don't see the point. The people of Reddit and myself agree that you are in fact the a-hole. You complained that nobody threw you a promotion party until you got your way, then proceeded to take home the leftover food instead of asking or even leaving some for your coworkers. While it's certainly nice to get recognition or a celebration when you've accomplished something, it should never be expected, and it kinda defeats the point if you act like some kind of pompous leader with such a selfishness and entitlement. But do you guys feel the same way that I do, or do you perhaps feel differently about any of today's stories? I always value your perspective in the comments and welcome you to share your own judgments below. Anyways, that's about all the time we have for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks again for tuning in with me, Jesse. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content, and check out what other stories I have for you. Have a beautiful day, and don't be an a-hole. I'll catch you in the next one.